Okay, so we're going to talk about using Dash together with advertools to build simple apps, basically converting an advertools function and making it a simple app. So at the beginning, I'm going to go through basic Dash functionality, how it works, and how the interactivity is set up, and then we'll see how to build up apps. Okay, so the first thing is we can from Dash, we import the Dash class, and we can create an app object, which is just Dash. That's it. I created an app. Now, usually what you want here is you want to put the path of the app, which you can use with name. Just memorize it like this, dunder name Dash. Okay. Now, this is basically how to create an app, which is just Dash with a capital letter. Now, because we want to run this, the app needs to have a layout, app.layout. We need to define this aspect of it. And layout is the visible part of the app. So in addition to that, we want to import the HTML module from Dash. And very quickly, this HTML module contains all the HTML tags in existence. Okay. So you can just say h1 hello, and it gives you this, and it gets converted to h1 hello like this. Okay, but we only write Python here, and Dash worries about converting this to actual HTML strings and so on. And every tag here gets the attributes that belong to it. So you can put a, and you can have children. So let's say click here, and you can put an href example.com, and you would have something like this. Okay, so let's create the app layout. We can start with an html.div. This is a normal div, and we can give it a bunch of children here. Let's put the first one as h1 hello world. Okay, and now I've imported Dash and HTML. I've created my app, and I've created a layout element attribute of my app, which is a div with a list, an h1 here. Now I can do app.run. Okay, so now I have a functioning app, and it has an h1 element over here. And that's it. That's all you need to do to create an app and run it. So now we have a server. The server is on my computer, and it has this. So we can add more elements here, like html.h3. Welcome to my app, and run this. So you have h1 here, h2 here. You can say html.horizontal rule, for example. You get the horizontal rule over here. You can add html.break, which just adds a line. You can put html.image. Let's get the Google logo, for example. Copy image address, okay. And source is equal to this. So we have this over here. And because this is image, you can change, so the width, I just want it 200 pixels. Okay. Or maybe 300 pixels. Okay. Let's put another break, or let's just put a link and say click here. See, it's over here, but two problems here. It's next to this one, so we can add an html.break. So it's under it. If you want more breaks, you can just simply do html.break, and there's more space here. Now this one doesn't have an href to it, so we can add it, google.com, and you can click here, and Google doesn't allow you to go to an iframe. So if you click here in a new frame, you get it. Okay. So yeah, this is basically, so with this you can create any, you have all the HTML elements and you can create any layout you want. This is a fully functioning app, and it works fine, and it's distributed, displayed here. One thing, you have a few options over here when you run this, which is the mode. So you can do mode equals external, and you won't see the app over here. You see it on this URL. Okay, so you can go there and see no code and no Jupyter, nothing. It's just a pure normal web app. Okay, so let's go back to inline, and that's the default. Now, these are all HTML components, and these are great for displaying any information you want on a web page, right? But what we want is the interactive elements. Okay, we want people to have a drop down, a slider, a chart, something that they can interact with and play with. Okay, so let's create a new application over here and call it the same thing, app, and create a layout, html.div, and a list here, html dot, let's say h1, app with interactive components. And we say app.run, just make sure this is working fine, and it is working fine. Now, in order to do this, we want to import the Dash core components module from Dash. Okay, so this module, let me put an html.break, and now I can say DCC dash core components dot any one of these things. Okay, so let's start with a slider. Slider needs a minimum, let's say 0, maximum is 100, and the default value is, let's say, 23. Okay, so now you have a slider with a minimum of 0, a maximum of 100, and a default value of 23. So now it's not just something that I read like this one, it's something that I play around with. Okay, let's add another break, and let's add a DCC dropdown, for example. So you get a drop-down menu over here. Now it's empty, but we can say, give me these options to my user, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So now the user can select any one of these things that they want. Now, and these components have many options. So I can make this a multi equals true. And now when you select one thing, you can select another one. You can select 2 days or 3 or 4, as many as you want. And you can search. So you can, if I put S, I'll get Saturday and Sunday, M, Monday, and so on. Okay. Let's put another HTML.break. We can put a DCC.graph. So you have a chart over here. Okay. Now it's empty. We can, let me just import Plotly Express is PX, and the figure attribute here can take a Plotly chart. So px.bar, x equals 1, 2, 3, 4, y is equal to whatever, 23, 45, 34, and we have a new graph over here. Okay. Now what we've done here is the same as we've done here, but we've added the Dash core components interactive elements that we have, and the user can interact with these, but there's still no interactivity. Nothing is happening. Like when I'm selecting, moving this, there's nothing going on. So now we want to create some interactivity within this app. Okay. So what I want to do is create a function, display number, and it takes a number, and it returns you selected number. Okay, So display number 23, you selected 23. 455, you selected 455. Okay, anything you add, you selected 2, 3, whatever that number is. Now what I want to do is I want the user to select the number here in the slider and my app to respond to this and say something to the user. You selected this number. Okay. So let's see how we can use this. So this is a new app. Okay, app.layout html.div, and we have a list here. Let's call it, you don't have to have an H1, and just, interactive slider app. Here's a break, app.run. We have this over here. Okay, that's correct. Let's copy the slider code. Whoops. And put it under this one. Okay, great. Now I'm going to copy the function that I created here, and I'm going to add it somewhere here. Okay. Now what I want is that this selected value over here becomes this number. Okay. And the output of this function should appear somewhere right here. So I'm going to create a new div, html.div, right underneath the slider over here. And I want this to be displayed over here. Okay. So the function is ready. The elements are there. I just have to connect them. I just have to create a way that connects the selection of this component to influence the div right underneath it. Okay. So I have to do two things. First of all, I have to create IDs for this. I'm going to call this slider. And this div, I'm going to call it output. Okay. And now I just have to create an attribute of the app called a callback function. I have to import something called input and output and state. We'll use state later, but now we're going to focus on input and output. Okay, these are classes. And okay, so the output that I want to influence is called this output. And the attribute that I want to influence is its children. And my input is going to be slider. And I'm going to take the slider value. Okay, I just connect these together. And this number is going to take this value over here. You can call it value just to make it easier for you to remember. And see what happens. Okay, so now it works. You selected 23. I don't know, I can't see, as a user, I can't see the number over here, but this app told me that I selected 23. I can do this. You selected 48. You selected 70. You selected something. Okay, so this is the most important thing in Dash. If you get this interactivity, you've mastered the main idea behind it, and you can use it. So let's change this to the drop-down menu. Okay, I'm going to put a comment here, and I'm going to do this. Multi is false. We just need to put an ID, and I'm going to call it drop-down. The IDs could be anything you want. They just have to make logical sense. And I'm going to change this here to drop-down. And you selected, let's see what happens here. So now instead of the slider, which we commented out, we have the drop-down. And we have the same thing. You selected none, you selected nothing. And now if I say Saturday, you selected Saturday, you selected Monday, you selected Tuesday. Okay, great. So now we want to use some advertools function to create something that's actually useful for someone to, and this let me run this again in Jupyter mode, external, and go here and select the date that I want. Okay, it's working fine. Now, you probably noticed that this doesn't look good. So there's a package called dash bootstrap components, which I'm going to import as DBC. And I'm going to create this exact same, exact same application again. But when I create the app, I'm going to add something called external style sheets. It takes a list, dbc dot themes dot, let's say, Cosmo. Okay, and now we have a very nicely themed app. Looks much better than this one, I think. And it's you know it's a full theme. It's a bootstrap theme that is created, designed, and analyzed by professionals. So there's a bunch of those themes here. You can go with Darkly, for example. You get this dark theme. You can go with whatever, Lumen, and you get nothing. I'm not sure what's happening here. Oh, okay, here it is. Took a while to download maybe the theme from the server. Yeah, I think it's taking some. Yeah, so this is Flatly, and you can select anyone you want. So we're going to be using this going forward. Okay, so the new app that we're going to create is just like this one. Dash name external style sheets equals dbc.themes Cosmo app.layout. We have an html.div. Here's a list. H1 interactive app and app.run. And we have it here in this Cosmo theme. Now let's add a new type of component. So DBC has something called an input, which is something that you can enter text into. Let's add a break here just to make them look nicer, and another break before the H1 tag, just to make it more readable. Okay, so let's create another callback function. First, let's create the function, define display text, and it takes a text and it returns you wrote text. Okay, and the same thing, we do app.callback. Let's create an HTML.break here and HTML.div. Okay, the ID here is the output, and the input has an ID of input. Okay, so output this children, and the input is input value. Okay, so it works again fine. You wrote none. Say good morning, how are you? And it takes this and writes it for me. Now, what I want to do is I want to create a robots.txt interactive app. And what this app does is you enter a URL over here, and of a robots file. It goes to this robots file, converts it to a data frame, and displays it to me here as a table, so I can analyze it or read it or process it in some way. Now, the main problem that we have over here is when I say HTTPS, it already started doing this, and it's going to make a request to HTTPS, and it's going to give me an error because there's no such URL. I'm going to say wait, colon, slash, slash. It's going to keep, every time I do this, it's going to run the function. And we don't want that. What we want is a way for the user to type in whatever they want here. And once they're ready, make sure there's no typos, then they would hit a button here, and then the function would be triggered. Okay. So what we can do is we can add a dbc.button, and it says submit html.break. We have a button here, and you wrote none. Let's have another break here. Yes. Okay. Now we need to add this button. We need to give it an ID and call it button. And we need to put it over here. So the input that is called button. Now we want an attribute that's called n clicks. Okay. And this is just the number of clicks on this submit. It starts with none. So if there are no n clicks, it's not going to happen. If the number of clicks changes, then it would be triggered. Okay. And this now becomes a state. Let me just put these one per line to make it more readable. Okay. And now my function here, instead of just text, it would take n clicks and text. And we want to invoke this function only if n clicks. So if n clicks is not none, nothing happens. Okay, let's try what happens here. So previously what we did here is when we started typing, the function immediately took this text that we entered and started processing it. Now it shouldn't do anything. Okay, HTTPS. Okay, nothing here. That's great. Google, see, I made a typo. I don't want the function to be invoked unless I tell it to do so. Okay, this is the correct thing. Now I submit and it says you wrote this. Great. So what we did here is we added a button so the user could control when this app or when this callback function is going to be triggered. Okay. So what I want to do here is take the text and create a robots df object. We have to import advertools. Let me just take this and put it in a separate cell. So adv.robots to data frame text, which is this. Okay. And I'm going to create a table, which is dbc.table from data frame, and it takes this robots df as the data frame, and I'm going to return this table. Let's see if that works. So nothing here, working fine. I entered this, nothing is triggered, that's correct. I only want it to be triggered once I hit submit. Let me hit submit now, and it works. So I have the Google, this file, the text file, which is this, converted to a data frame. So you have the directive here, you have the content of this directive, and you have some metadata over here. Robots last modified, the robots URL, download date, and so on. Okay. So it's working fine, as expected and as required. We can make another one, another app. So, or let's run this more into Jupyter mode, external, and go to that URL and see that it works exactly the same way. Okay. Now this is a bit too stuck here in the gutters. What we can do is this div, the main div of the app, it takes an optional style attribute, and I can say margin left is equal to 4%, and margin right is also equal to 4 or 5%, doesn't matter. So you see this space over here, which is a bit annoying, at least for me. Okay, now it's more It looks nice. It has a bootstrap theme, and it works nice. Okay, cool. Let's create another one. This one is going to be called the XML sitemap interactive app. Let's test it here. Okay. Now it's the same thing. Everything is the same. I just have to change this function. Okay, and call sitemap to df, and do the same thing. But I'm going to just change the name over here, sitemap df. Okay, and put it over here. Now the problem with sitemaps is they could get really, really large, and you don't want 20,000. So I'm going to just display the first 100 rows of this sitemap. Okay, so let's get a sitemap. For example, let's stick with Google, sitemap.xml, and choose one of these sitemaps. Okay, let me close these. And okay, let's see what happens now. I clicked. List index out of range. Something is wrong over here. Okay. Let's try another one. Gmail's sitemap. Again. Sitemap to df function. Okay, let me. Okay, this should work fine. Sitemap to df, sitemap df. Okay, let me run this again. This is the URL. Okay. Gmail's sitemap, and okay, now it's fine. So I have this working fine. Now there's one thing that is slightly annoying. Let me run this again, which is when I'm running the function, I don't know if what's happening. I'm going to click now, nothing is happening, and then this appears all of a sudden. And sitemaps can take a long time to load. So there is a component called dcc.loading. Okay, and I'm going to wrap this div around this loading component. Okay, now what should happen is, oops, sorry, 1 second. Sitemaps, we said Gmail, right? Yeah, okay. Here's the Gmail URL, sitemap. Now, while it's processing, see, I have this loading component, so I know that this is working fine. Okay, let me run this externally and go here. Works fine. Here's the Gmail. When I click, it's loading, and it works fine. Now this is only the first 100 rows because I don't want to go into more complex setups. There's definitely ways to display many more rows and so on. But let me just show you how this can work. If you want to deploy this, so this is the full code of the app. To your colleagues that are non-coders, you can go to Google Colab. Just turn these off. And let's create a new notebook. We have to pip install advertools -and -bootstrap components. Do it quietly. So let's see if this works. It's mode external. So ideally, I want to share this file with a colleague and say, all you have to do is just hit this button over here. Okay. Now, what this is going to do, it's going to run this code over here. The first thing is it's going to install these packages, and it's going to run the imports, create the app layout. See here, it's doing its job, and it's going to create an app and run it for me. Let's see what happens. Now it's running. Okay, app running on this URL. So if I click it, I go to this randomly generated URL by Google Colab, and I have an XML interactive map for me that I can run it with Gmail. I run it, this is running, and it works fine. So my colleagues who are non-coders, all they have to do is just come here and hit this button, wait a few seconds, and then wait till they see this URL and go there, and they'll see the XML interactive sitemap. Okay, that's it. That's how you. This is 28 lines of code, not even that, to create an XML sitemap interactive app. There's a bunch of similar apps over here that you can use. SEO crawler, same concept. This is a bit much more complicated than the others. You can put a bunch of links, URLs over here, follow links, and you have a bunch of advanced options. So you can, this is fully interactive. I just want to show what you can do. You can put, let's say, question marks here, so you don't clutter the page. But if someone doesn't know what URL parameters are, they can come here, and they can read the documentation, URL regular expression, custom extraction. You can set your column name and put the XPath selector. You can use interactivity here to add more selectors. So maybe I want 10, but you don't want this to be so big that it annoys the users, and you can delete like this, and so on. For example, I give you the option to select a user agent without having to know the user agent. You can just say Samsung Galaxy S22, and this is the actual user agent for it. Okay, you can say iPhone 13 Pro Max. You get it over here. Maximum pages to crawl, and you can start crawling. So this is one app. XML sitemap. This is the one that we just created. You can have it. It gives you a few more options over here. If you have the last mod, so you can see the publishing trends of this. Now this is a very small sitemap because it's the news sitemap, but you can see when every URL was published based on last mod, whether you wanted recursive or not, a bunch of stuff here. And this was just released today. Link analysis, you can put all the HTML you want, and so on. Yeah, I think this is enough, I hope, to clarify how things work, and a few examples, and I'll share this code, and hopefully it's useful.